Hello. Hi. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Welcome back to another session of RX Info on the Go. And I am Dr. Raven Milton, PharmD. If you give me just a second, I would appreciate it if you all would um, do me a favor by tagging, and sharing. If you could share this with someone who you think needs to know some information about iron and iodine, I would appreciate it. Today's topic is iron and iodine, the two I's. Um, it's a little bit of information on the iron, not so much on the iodine, but I think it's going to be informative for some of those people who may need it, and give you some information that you actually didn't know about. So, here we go. I'm going to take some time to tag, and share as well. I hope you will do the same. I'd appreciate it if you will. And I hope everybody's having an amazing Wednesday so far. It's gotten cooler out here. So we have officially, although we haven't entered fall, we've entered fall in Texas, which is kind of weird. Um, so we're enjoying the cool weather. I will say that much. So here we go. All right. Just giving some people a little bit of time to get on. It's 12:05 and I will start in just a second. All right. Okay. Let me turn my chat on so I can see some comments. And let's go. So we are talking about iron and iodine today. If you jump in on the live, say hi. Let me know that you're here, and I appreciate your support and appreciate you watching. So do me a favor and just say hi. Hit that highlight or at followers rather, so we can get the word out. So we can get some of this information out to people who may need it. So we are talking about iron and iodine today. Um, we're going to kick it off with iron. We know so much about iron. Iron is like one of those supplements that just about everybody is on, and rightfully so. It's one of the more important ones, and you'll see why as I get into the information of it all. But let's talk about iron. Now, iron is an essential component of hemoglobin, and hemoglobin is a protein in red blood cells, is what helps to make up your red blood cells. And so iron is very important for your red blood cell production. If you don't have the iron, red blood cells are not produced as they should be, and that creates a problem overall. Now, iron, in addition to that, supports muscle metabolism and healthy connective tissue. It also helps with the physical growth, neurological development, cellular functioning, and synthesis of some hormones. So that's a lot that iron does in the body, and we don't really think about iron outside of just the fact of the red blood cells, but it does a lot more than just the production of red blood cells. It helps that muscle metabolism and healthy connective tissue. Um, so just keep that in mind. And of course, that neurological growth is a factor, especially for pregnant women. So we want to make sure that we are getting enough iron in. What is the recommended intake? believe it or not, the recommended intake for iron is 8 milligrams. This is elemental iron. So when I'm talking about the recommended intake, we're talking about the elemental iron and not like the overall tablet. And I'll explain that in just a moment when we start talking about those supplements that are available out there and the elemental versus the total product. So that's one thing to think about. Um, so, like I said, 8 milligrams elemental iron is recommended for men. In women, it is 18 milligrams up to the age of 50. Um, Once you hit 51 and over, men and women, that recommended amount is 8 milligrams all over again. And that again is recommended um, daily intake of elemental iron. 27 milligrams in pregnancy. So, pregnant women, please make sure you have your multivitamins that you are taking that has 27 milligrams of elemental iron in your multivitamins or your prenatal vitamins. And majority of those prenatal vitamins do have that 27 milligrams in it. I have not seen um, any, to my recollection, that will be without that amount of iron in the prenatal vitamin. So keep that in mind. Also, vegetarians, your intake is going to be a lot higher because of the source of food that you're taking in. So, your recommended intake is going to be 1.8 times the amount of what a normal person would have. So, that's 1.8 times the amount of a normal person because you are a vegetarian. You're not getting iron from the sources that another person who does eat meat would get that iron from. You have to work a little bit harder to get your iron. So your recommended daily allowance or amount would be 1.8 times higher than that. Just keep that in mind. Now, there are two types of iron. There's hemi iron and there's non-hemi iron. And the two types of iron are found in different sources. So hemi iron is found in your lean meat and seafood, whereas non-hemi iron is found in nuts, beans, vegetables, and fortified grains. So the non-hemi iron, the vegetarians are going to get a good amount of because that's the type of foods that they eat, whereas the hemi iron they're not getting so much of, and that's why their recommended amount is greater per day. Now, in the US, half of the dietary iron that we get comes from um, bread, cereal, and other grain products because they are fortified with iron. So, what these companies have done and what the FDA has allowed is that they fortify cereals and breads and things like that in order for us to make sure that we do get the iron in our diets. Um, if you are eating the breads and iron, you're getting 100% of the iron, the fortified iron from that source. So keep that in mind. If you're a cereal, person, eat a bowl of cereal every day. 9 times out of 10, you're getting the amount of iron you're supposed to get because those sources are 100% available iron. Now, there's also lentils, spinach, and tofu. They are good sources for vegetarians and vegans. So your lentils, your spinach, and your tofu, you can still get a good amount of iron from those as well. Um, I'm not going to say that vegetarians can't get in, can't get enough, but you do need to take in more than what the person who does eat meat who does eat meat, because the person who eats meat is getting more iron from their products than what you are. It's a little confusing, but yeah. So, um, there are so many supplements for iron that's out there. And I don't know if you remember me talking about vitamin C, but helps. Vitamin C and iron go together in their absorption. So, iron is, if you take vitamin C with the iron, the vitamin C is going to help you absorb the iron. So, if you take a supplement that is that is iron. Say you're taking a tablet. If you drink it with a glass of orange juice, which has vitamin C in it, it's going to help increase the absorption of that supplement that you're taking. So vitamin C and iron go hand in hand. There are also products that are made together, vitamin C and iron, because of that, increase in absorption of iron due to the vitamin C. It's just something that's, we have suggested for ages. We found it out and it works. There are multivitamins that typically have 18 milligrams of iron in them. So most of your multivitamins are going to have iron. There are some that do not, but the majority of them do have that 18 milligrams of elemental iron that's in it. That is more than the recommended amount for men, but it is okay for you to have a little bit of extra iron. Your body will get rid of what it doesn't need unless you are unhealthy. Um, Iron's available as ferrous sulfate. I don't know if a lot of people may have heard of ferrous sulfate, and your doctor tells you to get the 325 milligrams of ferrous sulfate. Um, but sometimes they might say 65 milligrams of ferrous sulfate. Well, the difference between those two is that it's the same item. If you look on the label, it'll say ferrous sulfate 325 milligrams, and then in parentheses, um, ferrous element 65 milligrams elemental, or ferrous elemental 65 milligrams. So 65 milligrams of elemental iron is equivalent to 325 milligrams of the total compound, the total tablet that you're ingesting. It is the same thing. There's some confusion behind it when you go to pick up your iron over the counter. If you have any questions about which one you should get, always talk to your pharmacist. We can give you the best guidance on which one to get. There's more than just ferrous sulfate. There's also ferrous gluconate. There is ferric citrate and ferric sulfate. Lord, tongue twisters today. Ferrous sulfate, ferrous gluconate, ferric citrate, and ferric sulfate. Now, the top ones that we typically recommend, as far as brand names are concerned, are Fergon. And Fergon is ferrous gluconate, and it is one that's more gentle on the stomach. And then there's just your regular old fashioned, you'll see bottles that just say iron, honestly. They'll say iron 65 milligrams. Certain I'm not going to say certain, but just about every company that there is makes an iron supplement. If you are unsure of which one to get, always ask your pharmacist. We can make a suggestion for you. Not a problem. Um, so that's the difference in that. There are other vitamins that have a combination of iron and some other things. You'll see a bunch of different options, but one thing you will find is an option, whether it's iron by itself or in a multivitamin or paired with another vitamin. It's one of those things that we need to make sure that you have, so it is available for your needs. Now, iron deficiency is very common in young children, women of reproductive age, and pregnant women. It is something that we see more than we would like to see. Anemia, specifically, iron deficiency anemia, is something that we see a lot more, and it can happen a lot easier than what people think. So that deficiency thing is something that's very real. We do need to pay attention to our iron. When we don't have enough iron, we can have symptoms of being sluggish or fatigued. We can have symptoms of being cold all the time. um, if you see a person that is snacking on ice chips constantly, or they want to chew ice, that's an indicator that they are anemic as well. That iron deficiency, anemia, and it's just something that's more prevalent than we would like it to be. So pay attention to how you're feeling. If you are feeling sluggish, you are feeling tired all the time, like you want to sleep all the time, try to, make sure that you are, try to make sure that you are at least getting your levels checked whenever you go to the doctor. They should check it like when you go to the doctor for your checkup or your physical, your red blood cells count, white blood cell count should be something that is automatically checked in your lab work. Um, if they don't, and you are feeling extremely tired, you are feeling sluggish, that kind of cold all the time, make sure that you get that checked out. Talk to your doctor about it and say, hey, this is what's going on. This is how I'm feeling. Can we just, run some lab work just to make sure that I'm getting enough of the supplements and nutrients that I need to get? It never hurts to ask that question. Be your own advocate when it comes to your health. Um, so back to that. So iron deficiency can happen with poor diet. Specifically, if we're not eating, the things we're supposed to eat, we're not going to get the nutrients we're supposed to get. And that's just kind of across the board. Also, it can happen with malabsorptive disorders. So if you have a disorder where you do not um, absorb your nutrients, or specifically issues with the GI system, um, you're going to be more at risk for deficiency on most of the nutrients, actually. And last but not least, blood loss. Of course, for our women who have cycles every month, you are at a higher risk of having anemia due to the blood loss, especially if you're a heavy bleeder. Um, One thing that I've kind of told people is you can take the supplement, so take your iron during that week that you are on your cycle. There are actually birth control pills that include iron in them for the week that you are on your cycle. I know one of them is called low estrogen FE, and it's allows you to get some of that iron back that you're losing from having a cycle. It's the things we women go through. Thank you, Eve. Um, so I would say, if you are experiencing more than a normal blood loss, then talk to your doctor about it. You might need to actually get on iron supplement at, all the time instead of just during your cycle. In addition to the body temperature regulation, like that feeling cold all the time, you can also have confusion if you find yourself not being able to concentrate a lot, and just that your immune system is, kind of janky. You find that you're getting sick more often than what you normally would. All of that is paired into your iron, so that's something to check out as well. Um, I've mentioned those who are at risk would be pregnant women, infants and children, women with heavy menstrual cycles, frequent blood donors. So if you are a blood donor, typically you want to, make sure that your red blood cell count is a good count, and before you're giving blood. But if you're one that gives blood often, you want to make sure that you're on some type of supplement, that you're on a multivitamin, that you're making sure that you are, staying with all of the nutrients that you need, because once you give that blood, you're losing from your actual stores of iron. Um, Also, cancer patients and anyone who has had a GI disorder or surgery in the or GI surgery. The reason for that is because the absorption of iron takes place in the gastrointestinal tract. So when you have that surgery, it throws off the absorption of the iron. Also, people who are undergoing or dealing with heart failure. That's another set of people who are at risk for iron deficiency. Let's see. Um, Excessive iron. Now, Excessive iron is typically not an issue for the normal person who has no GI issues, whose gastrointestinal function is good. There's typically not an overload of iron. Um, but if you are taking, say, an iron supplement, and you're taking too much, you could experience some things like gastric upset or oh, upset stomach. You could experience constipation, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. If you are taking too much iron, these are the things that can kind of happen. Um, in addition to that, if you are just taking a normal dose of iron and you are experiencing side effects of upset stomach, eating with the supplement what can help you subside some of those side effects. So that's something else to keep in mind. And extreme overdoses of iron can cause organ failure. So when I say extreme, I mean like really ridiculous amounts of iron intake. You would have to be taking well over um, the recommended amounts in order for you to experience this organ failure. Um, Typically, when people are experiencing anemia, doctors will have them on the ferrous sulfate, one tablet 3 times a day. In addition to that, for people who are extremely anemic, they can get infusions. And sometimes we have to have blood transfusions for people who are losing that much blood. So those are your extreme cases, not an everyday case. Um, but if you're taking way too much of the over the counter stuff on your own without your doctor's instruction, you're typically a healthy person. Um, you would need to make sure that you're not taking too much because you can send your organs into organ failure with extreme doses. Just please be careful with that. Also, there is a warning that's on all of your iron tablets that iron can be fatal to children. It could be there are recommended amounts for children, but if they ingest, say, the amount that an adult ingests, um, especially in liquids and multivitamins, there are multivitamins that are made with iron for children that are like chewable. If they get into those multivitamins and they get too many of them, it could be poisonous to them. There have been way back in the past, and I'm not saying anything recent, but way back in the past, before this warning was even put on the bottles, there were children who ingested too many multivitamins or ingested too much of the liquid iron accidentally, and they were harmed by it. So want to make sure that we keep, just in general, you want to keep your vitamins and things of such out the reach of your children. The way that these multivitamins are made these days, they look like candy, and kids will get, to them as they can. I would say keep them out of reach of your children as much as possible. I have had, instances where, parents will call and say, hey, my kid ate, like a half a bottle of gummies of multivitamins. At that point, it's not to call me, but it is to call Poison Control Center. And those bottles of multivitamins should have a phone number for poison control, or you can, easily Google it. But that is the point at which you would call poison control so that they can walk you through the steps of what you would need to do for a child that takes in too many multivitamins. It's happened more times than not. So that goes with that. Last but not least, there are some interactions with iron with particular medications. If you know someone who's taking Cinemet, is the brand name, or the generic is called carbidopa levodopa. It is a medication for Parkinson's. If you know someone who's taking that medication, the iron's going to reduce its absorption. Their physician should be well aware of that and adjust their dose accordingly. But if you want to just check on your loved one, you could always, ask them if they were aware of that as well. Levothyroxine. If you have to take levothyroxine, which is a supplement, goodness, is a prescription for your thyroid for hypothyroidism. So it is for your thyroid. And if you happen to take that along with iron at the same time, the levothyroxine will not be effective. Now, levothyroxine in itself needs to be taken on an empty stomach at least an hour away from food or any other medication, because it is just that sensitive of a medication. So if you're that person that likes to take all of your medicines at the same time, if levothyroxine is one of them, you need to set it at least an hour apart from everything else. And that cures that problem. Last but not least, proton pump inhibitors. If you are on something like Protonix, Nexium, um, Prilosec, um, goodness, some generic names: omeprazole, esomeprazole, pantoprazole. These are all of your proton pump inhibitors. They all in Zoe, lansoprazole, or Prevacid. If you are on any of these, they can interact with your iron, and that's because these proton pump inhibitors reduce the acidity of your gastric system, or the acidity of your stomach contents, and therefore reduce the iron absorption, because iron depends on the acid to be absorbed properly. If you didn't know that, you know that now. So, typically, we will see people who are on proton pump inhibitors on iron supplements as well, because um, the absorption, or higher doses of the iron supplement rather, because the absorption is being decreased already. Um, that is everything on iron. That's a handful of information, and we can move on to iodine. Now, iodine is not so lengthy. It's kind of short and sweet, but most people don't think about iodine as a supplement or something that you actually need to be aware of, or thinking about. Um, when we think about iodine, we think about iodized salt. At least that's what I used to think about. So I'm hearing iodized salt, and the first thing I think about is, that's iodine. Well, it is one of the sources of iodine that you get, especially in the United States. They make sure that there are options for iodized salt. Now, there are now more natural sources of your table salt and different specialty salts that are not iodized, in case that's a problem for someone, because there are people who are allergic to iodine. Go figure. Um, if you are allergic to iodine, let me rephrase that. If you're allergic to seafood, 9 times out of 10 you are allergic to iodine, because there is iodine in the seafood. There you go. So, iodine is a trace element, is an essential component of your thyroid hormones, um, your T3 and T4 hormones. I know you don't probably hear that too much, but when you think about iodine, you should be concerned about how your thyroid is, functioning. These hormones regulate protein synthesis, enzymatic activity, metabolic activity. That means that's your hot cold center, and proper skeletal and central nervous system development in fetuses and infants. So, iodine is really important for the pregnant woman, um, and it's really important for your thyroid. It's really important for that endocrine system. and we don't even think about it. It's not something that we even, blink at, but it is a very important thing concerning those. The recommended intake is 150 microgram for both men and women, but if you are a pregnant woman, um, 250 micrograms for you. So if you are taking a multivitamin, you're not really going to see iodine in it in that, but you need to make sure that you are eating the right things and you do use table salt because table salt is iodized. So the good food sources, and I say the good food sources because I love fish and seafood. You're gonna get your iodine in fish and seafood. I'm a New Orleans girl. We love our seafood. I've had no issue with iodine because I get my iodine through my seafood. I love it. Um, Other sources would be seaweed, which is kelp, nori, kombu, and wakame. And I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that's what the sources are. I know about nori and I know about kelp. So if you love to eat sushi, you're getting your iodine too, because those are made with the nori wraps. Um, Eggs as well as another source of iodine. And then bread. So bread is made with this iodate dough conditioner. The Not the everyday bread that we make at home or someone might make at home, but the ones that are prepackaged and sold in stores. Those are made with iodate dough conditioners, which would be either potassium iodate or calcium iodate. So if you are a bread eater, you're getting your iodine. I talked about iodized salt, and that contains 45 micrograms per gram of salt, which is like a fourth to eight. Um, did I say a fourth to eight? I want to say it's a fourth of a teaspoon of salt. If you don't use iodized salt, if you are a sea salt user, kosher salt user, or Himalayan salt user, you are not getting iodine from those sources. Sea salt, kosher salt, Himalayan salt are not iodized salts. So if it is iodized, you would see the bottle, but the package say iodized salt on it. I'm used to seeing the little Morton's girl with the whole umbrella. That one iodized salt. They do make a non-iodized salt as well, but I'm used to seeing the iodized salt. Now, iodine deficiency is a thing, and there can be multiple effects on growth and development, which is why they started making sure that there was iodized salt available, and that these dough conditioners used for bread was an available, how can I put it, an available source of iodine as well. That was kind of thought out by the FDA because there was at one point in time a deficiency in iodine. If you, it's interesting to see how many things were deficient in the past and the things that were implemented to make those deficiencies kind of less of an issue now. So I can only imagine growing up in my grandparents and great grandparents time when um, people didn't really know about these different deficiencies, and actually the world didn't really know about these different deficiencies and how things got implemented over time. It's just really interesting to me, especially because of what I do and seeing all the different supplements that are available now. And it makes you wonder, well, why do we have all these different supplements? Well, we have them because they started finding out about deficiencies, and when those deficiencies happen, certain things affected the body in certain ways. So um in poorer countries, in like third world areas, their iodine, I want to say, when I was reading, it was like more of the Asian areas that iodine deficiency is still a thing. And you would think that at this time, at this day and age, you wouldn't have to worry about that, but apparently it is still a thing. So, um, yeah, that's that. In addition to that, so iodine deficiency, it has multiple effects on growth and development. The most common cause of preventable, it is the most common cause of preventable intellectual disability in the world. So I'll expound on that just a little bit. It results from inadequate thyroid production due to insufficient iodine. And the reason that it is the most common preventable intellectual disability is because when there's a lack of iodine, it produces a major developmental deficit and growth retardation in the fetus. So, specifically for pregnant women and infants and children, if they do not have the iodine that they are supposed to have in their system, um, the fetus can have neural developmental deficits. In addition, a miscarriage can happen. In addition, stillbirth can happen. All these can happen when a pregnant woman is deficient in iodine. Table salt, something as simple as table salt. Now, we talked about sodium the other day, so we don't want to go overboard, but we do need to recognize that iodine is really important for pregnant women so that babies come out healthy and whole, um, and prevent something that's preventable. So that is just something to think about. Um, Groups who are at risk, people who do not use iodized salt, pregnant women, vegans. So remember, one of those higher sources of iodine is seafood, um, because vegans don't eat seafood, or vegetarians for that part, um, because they don't eat seafood, eggs, or dairy products, or breads that are made with those products. Most remember that most of your mass marketed breads are going to have that dough conditioner that has the iodine in it, but regular bread also has dairy products in it. So you have to use um, eat specific breads as a vegan. Um, so they are at risk as well. And people living in regions with iodine deficient soils, and that's where that area of Asia that I spoke of is, because the soil is deficient in iodine, that it makes it to where their food is deficient in iodine. Um, Excessive iodine. Now, excessive iodine can cause elevated thyroid levels, essentially, and cause you to have hypothyroidism. Crazy thing is that it can also induce hyperthyroidism. So it can make your thyroid levels go up or make your thyroid levels go down. The thyroid is very, very sensitive. Um, it is your center of all. And when we talked about levothyroxine being very sensitive to what you eat, you have to separate an hour apart. That's very indicative of the thyroid itself. So iodine can increase or decrease thyroid levels when you have excessive iodine. It's a very interesting thing. The body is so complicated, and it's really sometimes hard to explain, but we just know that it is because God made it that way. Um, you should not exceed 1,100 micrograms of iodine per day. So go easy on the salt, on the table salt. If we go back to what the recommended intake is, it's 150 micrograms for men and women. For pregnant women, it's 250 micrograms. So that's a big window of what that maximum should be, 1,100 micrograms. You don't want to go over that. But you just be mindful of what you're taking in. And again, read labels. I know we don't want to read labels. I get it. We don't like to read labels. It's an something we don't want to think about. We just want to eat. But in order to take care of this body that God has given us, we gotta go the extra mile and do some of the extra things like reading labels, um, especially when it has so much stuff in there that we're not aware of. So, last but not least, interactions with medications. So, high doses of iodine can interact with anti-thyroid medications, and that can cause hypothyroidism. Um, we're talking about the levothyroxines that we were talking about earlier. There are several other medications for thyroid as well. So if you're on a thyroid medication, make sure that you're aware of, um, if you're a seafood lover, you might want to back off a little bit. Or if you are a salt lover, back off of the salt for those people who are on thyroid medications. ACE inhibitors. So here we go, your blood pressure patients. So if you are on an ACE inhibitor, lisinopril, ramipril, benazepril, all those that end in pril, there's an increased risk of hyperkalemia with potassium iodide. Now, remember, potassium iodide is one of those things that's in the bread um, that's used as a dough conditioner. So, if you love bread and you're on an ACE inhibitor, you may be getting in too much potassium. Never knew that. Never thought about it, right? Back off of your bread some. You might be increasing your potassium from the bread that you're eating, believe it or not. Read your labels, it might be on there. Um, and that's the potassium iodide. So it has the iodine factor, but it still has potassium in it as well, and that can increase your potassium levels. So same thing for potassium sparing diuretics. If you're on a potassium sparing diuretic, which is your chlorthalidone, spironolactone, things like that, that can increase your potassium levels as well when you are taking in potassium iodide. So potassium iodide, again, is a dough conditioner found in breads. You may want to read your labels, make sure that you're not taking in potassium iodide and taking in potassium in general, honestly, just to, read your labels and start finding out what's those extra things that's in there. And listen, Google is free. Google is your friend. Don't overdo it. Don't let Google diagnose you or don't let Google um, prescribe for you or recommend your prescriptive stuff. But if you see something on your labels that you don't understand what that name is, if it's something that you can't read and you want to find out what it is, Google it, put it on in, and find out. And if you don't like what it says, then it's something you need to stay away from. That may make it hard for you or make it more of a tedious thing to, when you're buying certain things and you want to stay away from it, you need to stay away from it. Like for me, for instance, and I don't know why I'm going here, but I am. I recently found out that I can't do creamers, coffee creamers that have gum in it. It makes me feel bloated. It makes my stomach, all puffed up. And that's just from having a cup of coffee in the morning. It's something that started recently and I noticed it. So I started reading labels. So now I make my coffee with this very expensive milk, Lord help me. And it's called milk, but it doesn't have any fillers or anything like that. And it's a non dairy milk. But gum in particular, GUM, you'll see it on, I promise you, if you go to your coffee creamer now, you'll see it on there. It doesn't agree with me. So I try to stay away from it. I also recognize that I can't do gummies with my multivitamins anymore because the gummies were not agreeing with me. I could have a gummy and drink a glass of water that day in the morning, and I would be bloated. And I'm like, why am I feeling bloated from just drinking water? It wasn't the water, it's my multivitamins. You have to pay attention to your body. You have to pay attention to the things that make your body feel some kind of way. So, saying all that, just to say, please be aware of the things that you are taking into your body and listen to your body when you start feeling different. If you've been eating something all your life and all of a sudden you are, feeling different with that same thing that you've been eating all of your life. I know someone who was eating seafood, and then at the age of 15, he became allergic to it. Your body changes, and you have to go with the way that your body changes. You have to make those adjustments. We're not young forever, we grow constantly. Change is a part of growth, and that includes your diet and your exercise and how you take care of your body and things like that. Don't know why I had to go here, but Holy Spirit led me here, so I'm just going to say it. So, listen to your body, please. Um, it has been well over my 30 minutes. And it is almost 1 o'clock, so I'm going to close out here. I have covered everything that I was supposed to cover on iron and iodine. If you didn't catch it all, please go back and watch the replay. I try to be as short as I possibly can, but for some reason, the Lord led me a little left towards the end. I want to thank you all for your support. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so. If you are not following me on Facebook at Dr. Raven Form D, or my Instagram page at Dr. Ravenform D, or just even a friend on my regular page, send a friend request at I am Dr. Raven Milton. I would appreciate it. I also have a website that you can check out. It's www.drravenformd.com. Remember that Raven is spelled with an I and not an E because my mama loves me. And I'm going to drop a couple of things. I have 3 books that are available. This one is my first one that was written. It's called The Do's and Don'ts of Earning Your First 6 Figures. And it was a guide that I did specifically for pharmacists, but it can be for anyone. If you want to grab a copy of that one signed as well, you can order it on my website. It's a really short read, but it's informative and it's helpful. It's some of the lessons that I learned after graduating from college and being a new grad, earning the amount of money that I was after not earning anything. Going from, fast food, salary to an actual pharmacist salary, it's a difference. And that's available for you. I also have this book called The Girl Who Wore Her Heart on Her Back. This is actually me on the cover. That's my back and my scar that's on the cover. It took a lot for me to put this on the cover because it's something that I've dealt with all my life. But this book deals with emotions and how God helps you to go through those emotions. It's again a short read. I like to be simple, concise, and to the point. When I'm writing, and I write in a manner that I would like everybody to kind of, understand where I'm coming from. And then last but not least, I do have the RX Care Journal. This is a journal for pharmacists. We were kind of going through it. We still are going through it as pharmacists. And there are a lot of people that are leaving the profession because of the abuse that we've had. And this was just a journal to kind of help people reflect on their day to day work and why they became a pharmacist. I know it helped me to just sit down and write and get back to the reason of why I'm doing it. What's my purpose in it all? So if you know someone who's a pharmacist and you want to give them a good gift for Pharmacist Month, which is actually next month, here's a good book for you to order. And I do have them again on my website. Also on my website are these awesome shirts, and I'm gonna go ahead and pull that up for you. This is the Grace one. They're called Prescriptions for Real Life. I have several of them there, and they are just shirts that inspire you to focus on the fact that God is the great physician, and He's the one that leads us. Holy Spirit leads us, and God signs every prescription. So everything that you need in life, whether it be grace that you're needing more of that day, whether it be hope that you're needing more of that day, whether it be faith, a little bit more faith, um, God can write that prescription for you, and it has unlimited refills, always will have unlimited refills. And so I have a few different shirts that are there, as well as some mugs and other things that you can look at. So just do me a favor, check out my website, and I'd appreciate it if you could share. So that's all about me. That's all I have for today. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me. It's been almost an hour, and I typically don't go this long, but I'm happy to share the information that I do share with you on a weekly basis. I will be back next week. Not sure what the topic is, but it's going to be something good as usual, because it's always the things that you never thought you needed to know in this beautiful world of pharmacy. I love y'all. Y'all have a great day, and I will see y'all next week. Same time, same place. Have a good day.